Welcome to Lesson 8 in our series on engineering research articles. In this lesson, we'll be looking at supporting your claims using evidence from the current research. This is based on Chapter 8 of our textbook. In communication, there's a typical pattern that you begin with shared knowledge, and then you connect new ideas to that shared knowledge. We could use an analogy of grafting a tree. With grafting a tree, you take a new shoot and you graft it onto an old tree. Now, if you just cut off a new shoot and stick it in the ground, most likely it's going to die. And if you stick it into a dead tree, obviously it's going to die. If you stick it into one that's not closely connected, it also won't flourish. It has to be grafted properly into a tree of a similar type. Similarly with research, as you take your new idea, you have to graft it into a living tree. A fruitful branch of research and connect it firmly. But where does that connection take place? Remember that we looked at in IMRD, in the introduction, we typically have the first 4 components, and those are all related to the past research. In the methods division, the author talks about what they did. It's based on the past, but it's what they did. It's their present research. And similarly, of course, the results and the discussion are talking about their present research. So the break between past and present is very clear and comes at the beginning of the methods division. It's very easy to find. On the other hand, in IPTC, in the introduction, again, we have the past. But then the beginning of the process division is the framework, and that also is the past, before going on to the research details in the present research in the later part of the process division. And then, of course, the testing is mostly present, although comparisons with the past may be made, and the conclusion is the present. But this means that the break between past and present occurs in the middle of the process division, making it a little harder to find. So how clear is the break? Some writers make it very clear. They talk about what's been done before, and then they say at the beginning of a section, in this section we. And so it's clear that that's where their research begins. Other times, it's less clear. At the beginning of a section, they switch, but they don't use that kind of a marker, and so it's more difficult to tell. Or maybe in the middle of the section, they've talked about framework, and then in the middle of a section, there's a new paragraph starting, in this paper we. That's a little less clear, but still fairly clearly marked. But sometimes they'll switch in the middle of a section without that kind of a marker, or there are multiple switches between past and present. Those are much harder to find. So I encourage you as much as possible in your own writing to stand out for clarity, to mark clearly that breakpoint, to make it easier for your readers. Now remember that many claims are implicit, particularly the claims 5, 6, and 7. You never make a claim that says, I collected my data in a valid and reliable way. But you write your support, you write what you did in a way that says, I carefully followed established procedures, so that it's clear that your data are valid and reliable and can be compared with other work. So there are at least 3 different types of support from current research. We know, of course, the data. That's what we think of typically as support from current research. But that data are worthless without talking about the validity of the data collection. And in many branches of engineering, we also have numbered examples or equations throughout the text. Particularly in mathematical treatments, those will occur in the framework and research details divisions. The data collection obviously refers to the research details and the testing methods, while the data are going to be found in the data patterns comparison. The data patterns. So let's talk about each of those separately. What about equations? Equations, as I said, are typically numbered for ease of reference, This allows the writer to refer back to them in a later section. If a later author wants to talk about them, they can also refer to the article, but also to that numbered equation within the article. Similarly, in linguistics, education, other social sciences, there may be numbered examples which allow later writers to refer back to that particular example. But these are less common in science and other non-mathematical engineering treatments. When they do occur, they're most commonly found in the framework and the research details, but may be found in the testing division, sometimes in the introduction as well. And then, of course, the research and testing details, these are found in the process and or the testing division, but they support claim 2. The idea that the data are reliable and valid, and or that you have a workable solution. So where are these found? Exercise 8.1 and 8.2 ask you to find the break between the current research and the numbered equations. And then it's also important to look at what key words highlight reliability and validity as you're talking about the details of the research and testing. So I'll have my TAs show you how they found these in their own exemplar articles. Okay, now we're going to look at our chemical engineering article and see where the current research is used to support the claims in that.
Okay, so this is my article. The introduction division starts from here. And we can see that there are lots of citations in the introduction division. These are all past researches. And here we can see that this is the framework that they use it. And also they use lots of citations to support the framework that they believe is feasible.
Okay.
And then here comes the research goal.
Right.
So most all of the citations are in the introduction division. And then here comes the method division, because they based on the framework, but they use their own concept. So there's no citations.
Now here, it's very clear because you have the division between the introduction and the methods. So this is the start of their work. But they don't mark it particularly. They don't say, now we talk about our research. Because in chemical engineering, everybody knows that.
Yes, because it's a typical way, but added their own concept. And they have talked it in the introduction division already. So they won't mention again in the method division. So it's a break here that started, fresh new here, that they started their experiment right here.
Okay.
Yes. So here's are the parameters that they say for sensible comparison.
Okay.
So they have to calculate. Yes. So and here there's also they have to mention that how much ratio they use. So also here is also the ratio here.
So all of these are set based on past research to allow them to make a reasonable comparison with the previous work.
Yes, because they add their own concept and here's the support here. So they use the concept of the framework and that they added their own way. Yes.
Okay, so you have both the framework which supports the validity of it, and also the fact that they use similar methods, similar parameters as other work, so that it makes it easy to compare.
Yes, and they also list the equations here, kind of equations that if anyone wanted to do it again, then they can use it.
Check it.
Yes.
Okay, now we'll do the same thing for our mechanical engineering article.
Okay, in my case, the difficulty of in this one is to separate or to figure out the breakpoint between the framework and research details. Because in my case, we have the the section 2. We also contain the two subsections, the 2.1 and 2.2. And as I have mentioned before, the 2.1 is to present the framework, and 2.2 is the research detail. And the main point is we have no idea how to distinguish or recognize these two when the framework start and when it's end, or when the research details start.
Okay, because so there's no marker there that I could recognize that says, now we begin. So you know which is framework and which is research details because you're in the field.
Yes, right.
But for a new graduate student just starting, they would have difficulty telling where the new research began because you don't have a clear marker there, and it starts in the middle of a section.
Okay, the middle section, there also, after the 2.2, there's not the section number 3, there's also the research detail, but they talk about another method. But after that, they will combine the 2.2 and the 3 together, and then they will produce their own methods.
Okay.
And the next part is the section number 4, is a convergent analysis. This section is quite special in my field because this section is trying to guarantee and show you that how this will work in practice. Because sometimes, okay, when we get this kind of the technique or this result, and hey, how do you guarantee that this will work in practice or in the experiment? And this will show you that why in terms of mathematics.
So the theorem is what proves, in this case, the validity of the method.
Yes.
And here you have most of the current research is all of these numbered equations, because this is a largely mathematical paper, and so that's what shows the validity of the work, is the mathematics works.
Yes, right.
Now let's look at our electrical engineering article. In this one, just like Bung's, it's sort of difficult to tell where the break point occurs between the framework, the past research, and the current research.
Yeah.
So how did you decide that this is the point that it begins?
So they mentioned in here is that a D3 graph. So if our people in our field, they will familiar with D3, and this is past work we mentioned in the framework, and now they start at D3 to construct in their work. So it will be more clear if they mention now they start to construct the D3 as follows.
Right, because you could say a DG is constructed about somebody else's work as well. But if they said, now we construct a DG graph or a DG, then it's very clear that it's the beginning of their work.
Yeah.
Okay, let's look also at the equations, because that's a little unusual in here as well.
So the equation in here is also unclear because they just only mark the number as they are mentioned the equation. For example, if 2 horse, other equation, if they don't mention in their paper, they didn't mark the number.
Yeah. That's unusual. Most papers mark all of them so that if someone else wants to refer to it in a later work, there's still a number there that they can refer back to.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this one, again, it's unusual in a number of ways, and that's just one more.
Yeah.
Okay.